Let us start the meeting, call to order at 6 o'clock. We'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Eric Burnham.
Present.
Doug Spencer.
Here.
Jolie Kovach.
Here.
Randy Niemeyer.
Present.
Tracy Haskell.
Here.
Nathan Viz.
Here.
Brian Smith is not with us this evening. Robert Carnahan is not here. Rick Eberly.
Present.
Attorney David Austin.
Present.
Jennifer Sandberg will not be with us tonight. And Terry Knowles will not be with us tonight.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Is Mr. Nagy here? And your better half.
Oh, no, you couldn't make it.
Now, this is being recorded and it's public.
Oh, that's right.
Mr. Carnahan is here.
Mr. Carnahan is here. Mr. Nagy, if you want to come forward, sir. That was a great introduction. All right.
You never know.
It is a pleasure to get to meet you face to face, sir. So it was roughly a year ago, this Redevelopment Commission was looking around, and one of the things we recognized, sir, is that we need to recognize and honor. There's a lot of folks here in town that have invested a lot of time, effort, money, family time to invest here in this community. And we started what we call a little recognition program, where we recognize a business a month, either a new business that's decided to move here or someone who has a lot of experience, longevity here, as a way to say thank you, get to know you a little bit better, take a picture and put it on our Facebook page and hopefully draw even more business to your business. And so with overwhelming support at our last meeting, we voted to recognize Nagy's Automotive, established here in town. And so we appreciate both you and your bride being here this evening. It's good to see the both of you. So a warm welcome to you.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations on the business. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us for just a couple of minutes, kind of history behind the business and kind of the plans moving forward, how you survived COVID. We'd love to hear it.
Well, we started 44 years ago, in the same location in 133rd and Parish. COVID's fine, biggest year we've ever had in business last year. It's been very interesting seeing the new people move into town. And these people, all they wanted, it's been fantastic, because all they want to do is be treated right. And we've been fortunate enough that it's just growing, and watching everything go by and watching the traffic back up, down past, you know, and it's a new experience. I think this award is something that should have been way back when started. It's a great thing. I appreciate it. Spent a lot of time in all those chairs and arguing with that guy and that guy.
Character building moment.
Yes. So I've enjoyed my
It's a two-way street, Dave.
I've enjoyed my time working for the town. Served on a lot of boards, and the door's always open. So thank you for the honor. It's a very, very nice, very humbling.
No, you said, was it 44 or 45 years in business?
40.
46.
There you go. 46.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
How many employees do you have?
Right now, you might say 3. We've got 2 part-timers and me and another one. Yeah.
Okay.
We've had quite a few in the past, but then downsize, you build a giant, and then when things get tough, it's hard to feed that giant.
Yep.
So we had 2 locations at once. I used to own 141 when it was just a gas station too. So
Okay.
now we just got 133rd and Parish.
Well, very cool. And also thank you for your spent time here on a variety of boards. I'm not sure which boards they've been, but thank you for that commitment. The community say thank you.
It was mostly enjoyable and fun, interesting, learned a lot.
It is work.
Yep.
Yeah, Absolutely. Any comments from the commission?
You've been around doing this a long time, Larry, and it's a testament to your customer service, what you've been able to accomplish over all these years. Reputations are not easily built, and they're harder to sustain, so you've done a great job, and it's appreciated. You provide a great service to the community, and always treated me fairly and other people fairly, so appreciate it, and wish you many more years.
We try to represent the town well, try and keep the place looking well.
Yeah, it looks
try and,
great.
You know, try and make sure it's representative. I appreciate the comment.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? All right, Mr. Nagy, we've got a letter on behalf of the commission I'd like to remit to you that highlights the paragraph that was remitted to us, emphasizing the need to recognize your business, and then we got a certificate as well. Sir?
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I believe Margaret would like to take a picture if your wonderful bride wants to come forward. Commissioner, are we back to taking pictures again? Getting within 6 feet, it's up to you, sir.
Oh, we both on our side.
All right, we can come on down.
I even got a card to prove it.
No, that's okay. It's a violation.
Margot, why don't you get the picture?
Right.
You want me to take a picture with your phone?
You're right.
Oh, I'm fine.
With the
Oh,
logo.
they want you in the photo.
Okay.
I wasn't
Camera's
grabbing.
visible.
Only spend the money?
Oh, yes, I do that well.
Just making sure,
That's why it keeps you around, right? You've known her for a
You know, the bank wouldn't
Truth.
know your signature would be.
truth and disclosure. Truth.
Jolie. Hi. Hey, everybody. Hey,
Hi.
RDC.
Got a good one?
No, let's try one more. Sorry.
I never take good pictures, so it won't be any better.
1, 2, 3.
It's hard to figure out they want to take the top part.
Thank you.
Very little.
Depends on the topic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, you bet.
Appreciate it. Wow, that's for.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
You almost start to feel normal now.
Thanks for coming out.
All right, we shall move forward to our consent agenda. We've got the approval of the April 19, 2021 meeting minutes, as well as claims, Fund 404, $0, and Fund 804, the amount of $1,937.50. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
For support?
Second.
Second. Motion is made by Doug, second by Randy. Discussion. Mr. Everly, we've got here $1,400 from Crone and Associates RDC tip report and Gateway Professional. Is that the company that we routinely utilize, or Dave, is that the company that your office routinely utilizes?
No, the town administrative office is under the direction of the town council, generally utilizes the Crone firm. I suspect, without seeing the detailed billing invoice, that these fees are representative of participation in the sustainability policy initiative and administrative processing that is in process.
Okay.
So, I suspect that the pot was, or 5 pots were tapped,
Gotcha.
or similar amounts, pro rata.
Yeah, that was all part of the full-scale financial analysis that we did, the sustainability plan, that gave us a lot of information to work from. So, yeah, part of it was a TIF analysis, as well as water, stormwater, sewer, town council, general fund, every possible stream of revenue that you can imagine, we went through with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay. We'll make a note here, Randy, I'll add that to project updates number 6, just a brief update on that analysis.
No problem.
Hearing none, we'll entertain motion, let's see, we got a motion to approve, roll call. Do we need to do it out loud because we have Eric?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Jolie Kovach,
Yes.
Doug Spencer,
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer,
Yes.
Eric Burnham,
Yes.
Nathan Viss.
Yes. All right. That passes 5-0. New business, Explore Everyday Community Recognition Nomination. Do we have any motions for the month of May?
I would like to nominate Cedar Lake Kitchen.
Support?
Second. It's always a good restaurant.
Agreed. All right, any
Nice
discussion?
people.
Mr. Burnham, is there a particular owner, name of an owner that you can help with Margaret and I to reach out to the next month?
Yeah, I can. I know his first name is George. I gotta get his, I'll have to get his last name for you.
Okay, can you get it tomorrow morning when you get your steak and eggs?
Not tomorrow, but I will get it done this week.
Noted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
His father-in-law owns, Pappas in Crown Point,
Okay.
so it's a family, and I think they own 12 islands too.
Does he know you by name, Bob? Keep
Yeah.
special cinnamon jar for you?
No, but he knows I go in there and he recognizes me.
All right. All right, roll call on that motion?
Jolie Kovach,
Yes.
Doug Spencer,
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Eric Burnham,
Yes.
Nathan Viss.
Yes. All right, number 2 on new business. Facade grant application 21-89011 West 133rd Avenue, Cedar Lake Storage. Let's see, who do we have with us tonight? Tim Porter and Dawn? Dawn Crawford. Welcome. Come on forward. Just for the record, I did some eviction work for the Porters, or advised on some eviction work, just for the record, and share that. I don't think that creates a conflict for me, but, like Mr. Porter, your dad reached out to me when I got this application a couple of weeks ago, and I encouraged him to take him up on it. He also asked me a question last week, Thursday, about whether or not it was still available to sign up for, and I heartily encouraged him to do so,
Okay.
just for the record. Go ahead, introduce yourself, sir, and tell me what you got, what you're thinking.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Porter. Thank you for the opportunity for me to come up here and speak. We have a property at 9011 West 133rd that we're turning into a storage business, and it's been distressed for quite some time now. It's kind of an eyesore, so we're requesting some grant money for landscaping, some painting, some new siding on some buildings, and a new parking lot. That's the gist of it. Do you need to know any specifics?
Is it just gonna be storage, or are there gonna be any other businesses that you're anticipating locating there?
Yeah, there's an office building there that we plan on renting out, using that for our business partially, and then part of it we'll rent out.
Okay. And what's the size of the overall ask, Tim?
It's about 90,000.
That's the total project cost?
That's what we plan on accomplishing.
It's the old Cedar Lake lumber, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then where the ambulance facility was located for a couple years, Randy?
Mhm. It's an area that's in need of some redevelopment for sure. This kind of fits the definition to me of facade grant improvements. And you have very detailed, quotations as well, so that's definitely appreciated.
No problem. We understand there's a 30 grand cap too. So, but
Actually, it's 25 is the cap,
oh, it's a 25. Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah.
And it's 30 grand over the course of 5 years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did you guys just take over ownership of that?
Correct.
Pardon?
Correct.
Oh, okay, yes, I remember seeing it for sale,
Mhm.
on a listing there.
Yep. Yeah, a few months ago,
Yeah.
or October actually. So.
Right. Thought it was had a lot of possibilities, so this is something that definitely needs it.
When do you plan on, moving in the facility, start to get that storage business set up, or have you done that already?
We're working on it. We've had a few requirements from the town as far as, turning it into a one-lot subdivision, which we're working on with DBG right now. There was something else that the town wanted, but, pardon me?
You received a variance from the BZA.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, that's in the packet here.
What about your water situation? I saw with the last rain, the whole place
Oh.
was flooded. Are you working on that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, DBG is working on that surveying. We're gonna put a, retention pond in the back. And, yeah, right now it's a big bowl right now, so, we're gonna get the grade and, elevations adjusted. So, yeah, definitely.
Is there an exact total number of the pages, or do we need to add that up manually?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I haven't added it up
I
yet.
haven't added it up.
I'll do that.
You summarized it on page 9 of your packet, $90,800. That was your total, correct, Jim?
$90,800?
Correct.
Correct. That's on page 9 of your packet,
Thank
Joe.
you.
And it looks to me like we've awarded 79,661 of our budgeted 100,000.
Correct.
So if,
You actually have $20,338.58 in available funds for this year. So that wouldn't be, that'd be a little more than 20% of, the ask, but that would be under the 25,000 max, of course, for any one single project.
Well, comment, I appreciate your seriousness with the fact that you've started the process with the town, going through the BZA, got the one-lot subdivision, you've hired a reputable engineer to do this stuff. It seems as though you have real projects that are ready to be started and completed. And this isn't just speculation or profiteering to improve your ROI, it's meant to support a redevelopment of a property, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the IT director just informed me that some of the mics, they either need to come down or be turned on. Some of the stuff is not getting recorded. Thank you, sorry.
Thanks.
I say, usually I don't have a problem, everybody can hear me, but I think it's on, yep.
Are you guys, as I remember the pictures there were quite a few large, I'm gonna call them like a pole barn type buildings there, but there weren't, smaller, lockers, or should I say, smaller, single, garage type deals like you see in a lot of storage places. This one was pretty big. And, are you planning on dividing that up like that, or you just kind of, it depends on how the business is rolling?
Correct. Yeah, kind of how the business is running. We got an approval for indoor and outdoor storage. There's a lot of open land right there, so we're gonna.
You can pull that mic up if you want, because you're a little taller.
Yeah, thanks.
Just tilt it up.
Just tilt it up.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna do outside and inside storage. There's a couple buildings on there right now that we're gonna utilize and turning into some inside storage, but for the most part, it'll be outside storage, and then whatever the market demands, as far as more indoor or more outdoor, so
I see.
kind of expand as we go.
Okay.
My opinion is I think anything we do here tonight probably needs to have a contingency of plan commission approval of that one-lot subdivision, because that still hasn't been voted on. And until that's voted on, they don't really have a project until that stuff is done. So I think anything we do tonight needs to have that caveat attached to it, just from a procedural standpoint, to make sure that you have all your I's dotted and T's crossed.
Yeah, definitely, I understand.
And one thing we're gonna wanna be careful of is, of course, you've got a 6-month life to these approvals. So my point, Jim, to you is that if you haven't started going before the plan commission yet, if you haven't been to any, work sessions yet, that could be a 3 to 4 month process.
Well, if he
depending
needs
on how-
extensions, he can request it.
Right, so if you grant this tonight, it's not likely he's gonna be able to meet the 6 month. You're gonna need to know that if you get this approved, you have 6 months to complete your project. If you can't get it approved, can't get it finished in that time, then you would come back and ask for an extension, a 6-month extension of this approval, provided you get the approval this evening.
Okay.
Is there a
So
motion?
if we were to do a 20%, that's 18,160, and we are better to serve you better, we are better off voting on that and granting you that money, because as we said, we're at the end of our, already in May, we're at the end of our total annual amount. So, you know, just you have to recall to come back when it's necessary to renew if need be.
Okay.
Yeah, communicate with Rick or Margaret and
Mm-hmm.
whoever you need.
There's a lot of work to be done on that site, for sure.
But the
Yeah, definitely.
20%, is
Mhm.
18,160. I'm not sure if anyone else had a different number
I
in
think
mind,
that's
and
a
I
good
don't wanna, okay. Then I'll make a motion for the 18,160, a 20%.
Would you make that contingent upon Plan Commission approval?
Plus the contingency of the Plan Commission, and noting that there's a 6-month time frame in which we give you allocate the funds to you.
Okay.
Okay?
There's support?
Second.
Discussion. I think this is a great project. I'm excited for you and for your future tenant, that I think is gonna add much to the town. So this is really exciting, so I'm happy for you guys, and thank you for making this significant investment in our community.
Yep, thank you very much.
Very well prepared.
Thank you.
Good job.
Roll call?
Jolie Kovach.
Yes.
Doug Spencer.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Eric Burnham.
Yes.
Nathan Viss.
Yes. All right, Tim, if there's any further items to assess, please work with Margaret and Rick. Please keep in mind the 6 months that you have for that time period. If you do need an extension, please come back. More likely than not, if there's been no work done on the rezoning, whatever needs to be done there,
Mhm.
it'll probably met disfavorably. Otherwise, carry on. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 3, Resolution 2021-01. Mr. Austin?
The annual
Go ahead.
The annual TIF increment capture resolution is before you pursuant to the same provisions of the Indiana Code as recent past years. This is required to be considered by you and then served upon the overlapping taxing units so that the TIF increment is captured, so that our debt service is satisfied, our obligations that are committed to the TIF revenue stream are satisfied or able to be paid, and for the necessary expenses of the conduct of the business of redevelopment here in town.
Okay.
You have 2 before you tonight. The first is for the 133rd Avenue Consolidated TIF District allocation area, and the second is for the SVT LLC allocation area TIF District.
So I will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2021-01, which is the resolution of the Cedar Lake Redevelopment Commission concerning the 2022 budget year determination for the need to capture incremental assessed valuation within the consolidated Cedar Lake 133rd Avenue Economic Development Area allocation area and all matters related thereto. Is there a motion to support?
So moved.
Support?
I'll give it a second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? Dave, one question is the bankruptcy that they went through a couple of years ago, does that impact at all our ability to collect more in any way, or?
No,
that
not at
doesn't
all.
change it?
In fact, that bankruptcy cleared our slate.
Okay,
So we will end up consolidating it, as I reported to you last month or the month before. As the dust settles on some of these items, we're gonna bring to you the consolidation and expansion proposal for the TIF allocation area. So that we pick up the newly annexed parcels.
okay,
We link the SVT into the main and ultimately single allocation area.
okay, that's a question I was gonna have later,
Yeah,
okay.
you'll have greater flexibility. It's ultimately your call, but it'll be greater flexibility because there'll only be one to deal with.
Mhm.
And all the TIF income we capture will go into that single allocation area.
Got it. Any further questions on this motion? Hearing none, roll call?
Julie Kovach.
Yes.
Doug Spencer.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes?
Eric Burnham.
Yes.
Nathan Viss.
Yes. Next, we have resolution number 20-21, or 2021-02, a resolution of the Cedar Lake Redevelopment Commission concerning the 2022 budget year determination for the need to capture incremental assessed valuation within the SVT allocation area and all matters related thereto. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
Second.
All right, second is made. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Julie Kovach.
Yes.
Doug Spencer.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Eric Burnham.
Yes.
Nathan Viss.
Yes. All right, Dave, and I think we passed around signatures.
If we can get them tonight, that's great. We have until June 15th to distribute to the overlapping taxing units. I have letters.
I have a note of some misspellings on most of those. I'm listed as just Randall C., which would be great. I mean, I think that's a great, like, handle to go by, you know? But, and Jolie is Jolie Kovacic.
Kovacic.
So, those things need to be corrected.
Yes, sir.
All right, duly noted, and if we need to re-sign, we definitely can. All right, next we've got Summer Winds Commercial Agreement deferred at the April meeting. Discussion on that particular item. We've got in our packet, informational packet that was sent by Mr. Lambert of Summer Winds. Open the floor to the commission for discussion.
I was, thinking that, Dave was going to give us, legal counsel on this matter, that's why it was deferred.
That was part of the reason, I guess.
Do we have?
I can talk about it.
Okay, I appreciate it.
You entertained an application, a request by Mr. Lambert and his development team to participate in the infrastructure improvements related to his commercial project. That project consideration took several months in the context of developing a formula, a methodology, a way of assessing and analyzing how to properly contribute, so legalities were met, balances were achieved, and responsibilities to our taxpayers were balanced with the related expenditure or participation in costs of a development project such as this. Ultimately, from my read of the record in the minutes, you concluded that with the approval of a methodology, you had a program, a policy that you established, and implementing or integrating the estimated costs and expenses, that you arrived at an amount of participation. And the minutes of the meeting reflected what the motion was related to that. It was $270,000 you deemed appropriate for participation based upon your objective formula. In fact, wasn't that a Veritas assisted template?
Yeah, we basically developed a development matrix around this request as a way to plug it into a set of objectives rather than opinions.
Correct. So, in the context of the motion being made, and I think Randy, you made the motion, and I'm not certain, I think it was Eric made the second.
Doug Spencer.
Oh, Doug made the second.
Yeah.
You authorized distribution of funds in the manner contemplated by the template that was your formula. There was no direction, however, this is the segue for pieces, because the items I just talked about are in the record. You can read them for yourself and you can verify that. What isn't in the record is the direction to prepare an economic development agreement or a development agreement undertaking, nor was one prepared. There was no acknowledgement of acceptance by Mr. Lambert or anybody on his development team, and the air went black for a period of time until last month from that meeting to this discussion 1 month ago. So I read that as a lawyer might read it. We might beg to disagree also. That's what lawyers do. It's okay. But an agreement is a meeting of the minds. A meeting of the minds based upon an offer being made, an acceptance being reached, and a consideration being included or injected for the agreement to take place. I don't see that having happened here. I see there was a commitment, and the money was referenced in specific amount and from what sources. But there was not a corresponding acceptance and then the consideration that would accompany such an agreement. And we had no public meeting action of approval of a formal agreement based upon those factors. So
my question would be, as being very far from being an attorney and being only a member of this board, and different things come up with allocations of funds and payments and what projects we'll work on and things of that nature, I feel that I was not aware that these type of things, just because of my simple-mindedness. So I'm a little disappointed that I come here and vote on something, and other than to say out of sheer ignorance, I'm not aware that other criteria needs to be met when I'm allocating something and I'm enthusiastic about a project of this nature and what it's brought to this town and what we've gleaned from. And this is a significant amount of money to retract if that's what we decide to do. So again, unfortunately, I'm just not comfortable that, 2 years later, I was not aware that these sort of things happen. I've not been on the town council. I don't sit on the town council. I'm not a party to the, any other communications. I recall when Mr. Weiser was here, and if someone's got an attorney with them, I'm under the assumption that, and you can understand our point, that your legal counsel maybe should have advised you at some point to do what was necessary, and I'm going to mind the goals of good intention and assume that you were under the same guise as me, that we voted on this. I mean, I can't get inside your head and know if you dropped the ball. I'm not aware of that. I can only go off of what I personally said, and that was yes to $270,000 on that particular date. And other than knowing that you were coming before us again to make good on that, I was unaware that these type of other sorts of things have to go into place. And that's where I'm at with the whole thing. And where I'm at with a decision is kind of still unclear what's right.
May I briefly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Jolie, those are not unfair comments, not at all. The confusion that exists tonight should not exist. But that being said, there was a template and a program that was established by our commission, that had a format in it, it had a template description in it, it had an identification of process in it. And the first step in that process was your consideration of the request and the allocation of the dollars into the template for calculation purposes. And you did that. You did that out here. You did that like you do with facade improvements. You just pulled out your calculator for $18,600 to Mr. Porter. That's what we do here. And that happened in your meeting. What is also important to remember is that it isn't just TIP funds that is at play or is on the table. There were a combination of funds from other town sources that were a participatory amount and are contemplated by your policy, and were contemplated in your assessment of what the amount should be. to deliver or to participate in. So, yeah, I understand frustration and kind of lack of clarity position, but we had the scorecard in our hands, and if there's a participatory role, the lawyers call it comparative negligence. If everybody has a role in it, we have a piece of it, in the opinion of this lawyer.
To kind of jump into this, Nathan, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Part of that discussion, and it's noted in the record, was about the RDC approaching the utility board for the portion of those funds that were utility related, and that was just shy of 200,000 between stormwater and water. That's the most significant part of that. Within the town's utility regulations, we have the ability, and also through statute, to offer what are called recapture agreements under statute, but those things all have to be done in writing. A lot of times, utility incentives will be done through that sort of mechanism where the property owner gets the benefit of basically collecting the money from the ratepayers until they're made whole as part of something like that. Those are mechanisms that can be used in economic development agreements and have been used before, and we've changed system development charges for that purpose of being able to have a little more of an opportunity to partner with people when it comes to infrastructure expansion. In this case, there was nothing done with that portion of it that would even have allowed the utility board to take action, because everything has to be done according to statute relating to those recapture agreements in writing. I mentioned it to the utility board after this meeting, and we can probably find it on the record somewhere, that was something that the Redevelopment Commission was in support of, but there was never any overture by Mr. Weiser to work on that sort of agreement, to negotiate what part of it would be maybe investment in cash, what part of it would be recapture, the terms of it, the length of it. None of that was ever developed, and that was between Mr. Weiser and Mr. Austin, and Mr. Weiser working on behalf of Mr. Lambert. So, I mean, I agree with you, Jolie, there was some confusion in some of this stuff, but Mr. Lambert hired a competent attorney who's done this kind of work before, and as far as any of us knew, when he left here, that was supposed to be taken care of, and nothing ever happened with it. And that's not on us, that's on the petitioner to follow through with that work as far as I'm concerned. But we couldn't, as a utility board, authorize an expenditure like this unless it was negotiated and there were terms worked out of how it's going to be remunerated. Without that, we really have nothing to stand on the statute by either. So all of that would have had to have been negotiated, and the town is not going to negotiate after it's already been built. That would open up the door to every developer who builds something, and part of our development requirements are that they install infrastructure, things like water mains, sewer mains, stormwater retention, roads, right? Every subdivision built out here has the same thing, and if we open the door to the after-the-fact negotiations, we basically open the door to every single developer coming in here and requesting money after they already built it, which to me is extremely bad fiscal policy, and we're just asking for trouble at that point. So this is nothing that I have personal against Mr. Lambert. I think he's done a tremendous job, and I congratulate him on it. He did a great job, but this after-the-fact stuff is very, very dangerous.
Well, and two, for the years I've been sitting on this commission, this is probably one that is, one of the few that I voted on to this amount and to
We all supported the
degree
initiative.
of, I mean, that's why.
If I recall correctly, there, when it first came out and they were first petitioning us for the monies or whatever, it kind of hit me wrong. It was just like they were asking for money, and when we got to the utilities and and the, the sewer and the water and whatever. Now, that all made, the infrastructure made a lot more sense to me, and that was discussed, and that's what they were going to do, and that's where my yes vote came from. I was looking at that, that's gonna be great for everybody involved and all the businesses involved, especially since he was gonna be putting a lot of businesses right in there.
And I can tell you from discussions that have been had in committee form on various possible projects, any discussions of any sort of economic development agreements are always centered around infrastructure. Because infrastructure is something that has public benefit. We're not in the business of making sure that everybody makes money off the taxpayers, right? We're in the business of creating a platform and making sure we have sustainable infrastructure that sustains not only the business that's developed by an individual developer, but whoever may follow. And also it lends to public improvements too. So, those are things that I can tell you in committee form when we discuss these sorts of things, and even with our consultant Veritas, it's always centered around infrastructure. And yeah, I was a supporter of that, but again, we have nothing in writing from the infrastructure standpoint that created those negotiated terms that we could stand upon and would test out against statute.
Well, I also thought that there would be the development of a custom template economic development agreement that would identify the path of the fund distribution available or possible with a developer doing something such as what Brad is doing or has done. You had a role in it as a redevelopment commission. So did the town's municipal water utility. So did the town's municipal wastewater facility. There was a place that the next step had to be taken. And really required an agreement. And I actually thought at one time that the deal wasn't going to happen. I mean, in the context of Brad developing and building the thing. But we didn't have any other word until we started building.
So, I gotta be careful here. It's always difficult when you're the chair as to how much you weigh in on things, and that's something that I've been trying to learn as your leader, I guess, over the past several years. And I've
Well,
given
remember,
a lot
you're a public servant, so
I know.
you can say whatever you want to say on these. This is self-government, man.
That's right. And I've lost a lot of sleep over this one ever since late February when the question emerged that Mr. Lambert, you wanted to come back before this commission. And some of the questions that I did ask of some town officials was there conversations with you as you were building this project about these monies? And it's my understanding that there was conversation between you and building inspector and others as to specifically the infrastructure that needed to be placed. It's my understanding that you had to put in a significant amount of additional infrastructure that wasn't anticipated out there that services not only your development, but also adjacent areas and will be a help down the road. And we talk often at this commission level of growing pains, because we are growing and we learn things. I've learned a significant amount in the last 8 years. And when I look back at that meeting, I learned something. I should have done better as your leader and requested something specifically in writing, and I didn't. And I learned that. This was a unique time period that we had, and Randy, to your credit, you pushed and said we need to have Veritas Group put together a matrix that says whether or not this is a good investment. And we took, much to Mr. Lambert's chagrin, 4, 5 months to do so.
Yeah.
But we came forward.
A lot of work. You guys put a lot of work in on it.
Yep. And my point in saying that is we did that because this was the only investment of this magnitude that this commission has seen since we were approached by the Highway 41 development of Bob's Auto Group, and prior to that, SVT. So my point is these don't come along very often. But I guess at the end of the day, having said that, and having recognized that we've all learned something that we are not going to forget moving forward, in my mind, as Mr. Osh indicates, reasonable minds can differ. I too have looked at it from a legal perspective. I've researched whether or not there's existing case law out there on when you make a motion, is it a binding contract or not, and the record is unclear. And I come down to a very simple thought. We made a commitment. that commitment was to this development, to this developer, that if you build it, if you install the infrastructure, that we will reimburse you $270,000. There was confusion on our end as to where it would come from. Maybe I shouldn't say confusion. There was assessments still that had to happen on our end as to where the money would come from. But an offer was made, and in my mind, acceptance was made when Mr. Lambert invested a significant amount of time and money to then build it over the next 2 years. Nothing has changed from our initial motion, other than the fact that now the project is complete. And in my mind, the only items that need to be assessed is when we commence our 7 years of payment, which I would suggest start next year. And that is the year that really the taxes are going to start in earnest. This year, they're not gonna start in earnest on that property. They're gonna start in earnest next year. And secondly, that we also approach the utility board as to how we can prorate it. In my mind, that's the fair, and that's the simple and honorable way to approach a commitment that we made 2 years ago.
I would like to also add an enthusiasm, to Randy and you, Nathan, because I think being a part of this board, what has always had me come over here after a long day's work and running my 2 daughters around is the fact that this town deserves the redevelopment. This town, I not only work alongside some of these people, they're also close enough friends that I know the phone calls and the nights and the weekends that they spend working on all of this. So this is really, this has hit me pretty hard as well, because it's important to me to address these things with character. And the thing is that what I'm talking about, the enthusiasm, was when Randy said, let's go check out Lake Geneva, and we're gonna go and see what they're doing out there. And really, I'm a visual person, you know what I do for a living, so I'm very aware of what that sort of AV can bring about to this community. And so those 2 things, a vision of the development and also knowing that we need, which has been said multiple times by every person on this commission, that the AV is needed in order to offset what is going on, and that this town needs businesses to come in order, the residential is not where we're going to be sustainable. So that's where my mindset was at. I understand that quite possibly there should be some documentation that I was not even aware of was a part of the next phase, like we have with our facade grant. We have steps that we require people to take. I was not ever given any of that documentation that you would have to follow through. So I agree. I have to stick to my word and go with approving this. And that's what I will say about that.
One of the items, I gave Jolie a call because she is much more knowledgeable in this area than I ever am or will be. And that question was, what do you perceive the assessed valuation of this is going to be, and what does that mean in regards to tax dollars? And I don't want to misquote, but your assessment was that it should eventually be taxed at about $3 million?
Well, yeah, what I was looking at, because it's not 100% complete as of 1/1/2021, and so just knowing what you have it mortgaged for and what we utilize in order to put a valuation on that. I personally am not involved in that. Of course, the county assessor is, but I am aware of the steps in order to get to that. So I just gave my professional opinion of $3 million.
Which results in approximate property taxes once it's fully valued at that
A
about
3% cap.
At $90,000, and of that, approximately 45% comes back to the town.
Yes, Randy.
No, it'd be,
The school
if we
is
have it, no, if we have it
43%.
tipped, we get the whole increment. So
Right.
whatever it was assessed at as its raw property compared to its finished product, we get the increment, since
Yeah.
that's part of our tip allocation area.
And the reason I bring that up is, taking a look at those numbers, that's a significant dollar amount that comes back to us. And if this commission were to continue to approve the prior motion that we've made, it's a significant return back on the investment that we initially discussed 2 years ago.
And I'll also say that with that type of I keep forgetting, I tell my husband, I'm like, oh, we don't have to go to Crown Point for Pops anymore. So, you know, that's gonna draw more and more and more, businesses to the area if they see all those little, people need those little shops and restaurants and things of that nature in order to not have to drive to St. John and Cherville and Crown Point anymore. I've lived here
You
22
can't
years.
get to any of those communities, the traffic's too damn bad.
Well, that's just it. So another reason why this project is the first of this nature to this extent, the beautification of that area that's been a field, just the whole project is something that was what made me vote yes 2 years ago.
So, go ahead,
I
Nathan.
have a question. To Randy's question that he made earlier, is there a way to go back in time or to move forward with a recapture on utilities, or is that only allowed at the forefront of a project?
Yeah, it's
I'm
at the
unfamiliar.
It's in the beginning.
We couldn't implement that now, or recapture?
Are we connected? And you're open, you have tenants who are in business, right?
Yes,
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
There's one tenant that's not connected, the possible restaurant location.
two tenants, right? 5A and 5B are not connected.
Yeah, because part of that recapture would also be tap fees and
Yeah.
things like that, so we, like I say, anything that this commission may, you know, offer for a motion for approval could only be the tip portion of it. It couldn't be the utility portion of it.
And when I look back at the bid form, we've got a significant amount that general infrastructure, you take out sewer, water main, that's approximately $188,000, but there was $173 in asphalt paving and curbs, $5 in landscaping, site and electrical $35, general conditions $48, engineering $5, earthwork $82.
The reimbursement agreement would be for water and sewer. Statutorily, it's only for water. By home rule custom, we apply the same laws to sewer.
But it's mostly stormwater more than sanitary,
Well, I'd be more concerned,
or what we talked about
well,
anyways.
storm would be the same thing. It would be by implementation of home rule, you
Right,
utilize the same rules.
right.
But I would be more concerned about identifying the service area, the recapture area, if you will, of what potentially could be connected that would result in a reimbursement to the original developer, property owner, and how that calculation would be. That's typically an engineer's calculation.
And again, the thing that I am very concerned about, and I understand your stance on it, Jolie, and I respect it, is doing this after the fact and what it sets for a precedent. Unless the language is very, very carefully crafted around any sort of agreement or approval that may take place tonight, and any writing that might follow it, we open ourselves, because like I said, our development standards include these things as a requirement of developing. So now if you're gonna take this requirement and allow people to cash in on the back end, that is just, it's bad financial policy, and it's bad procedure to do these things on the back end. And I would certainly hope that anybody that's a part of this would pay very close attention to any language that might come out of any sort of approval of this, because we have got to make sure that we don't open ourselves to this floodgate, because that's the possibility. Deals are negotiated on the front end, not the back end, because now we have absolutely nothing to negotiate. We weren't a part of the process other than the building department in its approvals, making sure things were up to town standards, but we weren't able to look at the larger scope of this project and really contemplate, as part of that negotiation, how it impacts the broader community, like we are right now in committee form, discussing with other possible developments on the front end, and any of those agreements will take place on the front end. So that is my heartburn with this thing, is one, that this commission can't approve utility funds, and secondly, this after the fact thing is a very dangerous door to open.
Can I ask a question on that,
Go ahead,
Randy?
Mr. Lambert.
Randy, or to the commission?
Go ahead.
The only question I have about that, and this is, you know, to Ms. Kvetch's, point as well, you know, when I left here that night, of the approval, and, you know, mea culpa, my attorney wasn't here, at the time. But, I was under the impression that, you know, the next step was for us to complete the work. 'Cause I was under the impression that, you know, the whole process that we went through, that you guys, I mean, and of course, I spent a lot of time going back through and kind of creating a timeline, and, I think the people in the office here don't wanna take my emails anymore, because I requested minutes of like 2 years of plan commission and all that stuff going through it. But I guess, you know, my point in saying that is that, wow, you guys went through a lot of work to, you know, with the whole Veritas thing, and I went through all the minutes and the notes and all the meetings you guys must have even had, you know, before it was even a public meeting, you know, talking this thing over and all of it, and you know, I would just want to say how grateful for him, and I'm not trying to suck up here, I'm just trying to say that, so.
Sucking up's not bad, Brad.
I guess my point is that I felt then, I thought that was the process we were going through. I thought that was how we were arriving at the dollar amount. So I thought that was the negotiation process in itself.
So if I can comment to that real quick.
The approval, so
I mean, I can understand some of your confusion too and appreciate it, but the process we went through was developing the objective mathematical equation to actually spit out a number. Something that wasn't any of our feelings, take some emotion out of it, opinions,
right.
but the negotiating part of this when it comes to utilizing taxpayer dollars for economic development agreements is all governed within statute of how we have these relationships, the sorts of language that we need to make sure that when we're expending these dollars, it passes the smell test of IDLGF as well as the State Board of Accounts. We have very tight reins on us by the state of Indiana as it relates to this, and your attorney knows that, and it's disappointing that Mr. Weiser did not advise you that there needed to be more work done from a legal standpoint just for us to be able to meet the provisions of statute as it relates to these economic development agreements, so.
Yeah, I was completely unaware, and forgive me of my ignorance of the process, because.
But your attorney's not ignorant. He's been doing it a long time. And I know he and Dave had conversations after that meeting, and never once did he make an overture, hey, we need to work out the details of this. Not one time. That's pretty bad representation on that particular item.
Well, again, given an inter-agency participatory relationship, just understand this from a pure audit perspective, to have no documentation of how the 3 or 4 departmental sources of funds are going to be participatory in this, all by itself is a problem. And it's contemplated that you have funds to spend on redevelopment. That's what Title 36-714 is all about. But just having air between us, not anything in confirmatory, legal, appropriate, audit, reviewable fashion, means every year for the next 7 years, if you make a motion tonight and check off on this, we have air to be audited and checked and verified between here and there.
And Dave brings up a good point too. I think whatever motion is made tonight, and if there is a approval given, I think we're gonna need some review by our financial advisors to make sure that whatever is done is going to pass that smell test. You know, it's kind of like, you know, Margot can attest to this. We pass a budget every year as a council. We adopt a budget, but that budget is accompanied by the legal citings, by an ordinance, by resolutions. And that's how every expenditure is made in this town, is through ordinance and resolution. There's nothing done without it. And like I say, Mr. Weezer's aware of that stuff. He's been around municipal law a very long time, land use, development. So I can understand that you might have been ignorant to some of it, but Jim shouldn't have been. And it, I mean, to me, that's the bottom line, is procedurally, we are in a black hole with this thing. And like I say, my personal feelings are, I supported this. I developed the relationship myself with Veritas in 2017, and we started talking about how do we do this? How do we create a platform that is fair and objective and fair to the broader tax base, right? And that's what we came up with. And unfortunately, from a procedural standpoint, this is a really tough mountain to climb right now. Say, it's not my personal feelings, but I've learned in my 11 years on the council is that if we don't follow procedure, we get absolutely hammered, as well as we should, because we have to be accountable to the taxpayers.
So, I agree with Mr. Niemeyer that doing things on the back end is a terrible way to do business, but I think we've logged enough how we got here and that it was a two-way street, as the things should have been done in better order on both sides back in 2019. My assessment of it, and my interpretation of the Redevelopment Commission law is that we can apply monies not only to new developments, but to redevelop areas. Your particular project was both a new development and a redevelopment of an area that was undeveloped. We do that on a monthly basis when it comes to our facade grant program.
Yeah.
It'd be my assessment that recognizing we don't have the ability to go back in time and approach the utility department for what they did, that there's more than enough in the documents which have been submitted, and perhaps we can request more, that there's been significant infrastructure developments that meet the 270,000 mark. And I guess what I'm looking at is a reimbursement schedule of $19,250 commencing spring 2022 in April, and a payment in October of $19,250 then over the course of the next 7 years. That accomplishes two things. One, it realizes our commitment towards this project of 270. And number two, it does so in a manner which accomplishes one of the questions that Mr. Lambert had 2 years ago, which was relief at tax time for anticipated relief, and that fits the schema that we had of remittance over 7 years. So that allows us to make an investment over time, allows us to satisfy the objective that we had 2 years ago. And I think that's a fair, equitable resolution to the difficult situation we have here.
I would also like to add that, one thing while we're in conversation about this project, this should have been on our project update list every single month, so that it was not, I see that each person is taking culpability for their part in this. I failed as well. You really moved that quite along, especially with COVID. So I think it went up relatively. I don't know if there was any glitches in the process for you, as far as working with.
It went quickly.
Yeah. So, I appreciate that a lot, and that, I just want to add that until something is completely closed out, we need to put that on our project updates, because we put mailboxes on our project updates, so this was something we should have kept on there.
I think part of the reason it might not have been on there is because I remember Mr. Lambert was not extremely happy with our offer that evening, and a comment was made that nobody knew if he was even gonna build. So I think that some of it got lost
I do
there.
recall your disappointment with not getting,
Yeah, if I can.
the abatement sort of thing. We did sort of
Just didn't
go round
really
and round with
qualify for
that.
abatement.
No, it didn't, yeah, you were disappointed in us in that regard, and we weren't ready.
Yeah, and I want to sincerely apologize if I conveyed that, conveyed that to you, of me being disappointed in you, just with the amount of the ask at the forefront of this thing being, $590,000. For me, it was more of a realization that, that I had a lot more work to do. I think I did. If it was after the meeting, just, you know, again, expressing my gratitude to the commission, for all the work that went into it, and, you know, for agreeing to partner it with us in, you know, bringing Summerwinds Plaza to life. But that it just meant, but that I also said, you know, I need to try to see if I can get some more money, you know, through, either tax abatement or something other that I would go through a different channel, possibly, you know, through the town. So I apologize if you know, my realization that when I thought that my work was gonna be over, but it turned out it was gonna have to be carried on quite a bit further, but regardless, I apologize that I conveyed that message in perhaps my facial, you know, poses or whatever, so.
Nathan,
Go ahead.
let me make just a bit of a record legally. You, as a redevelopment commission, do not have authority or standing over municipal utility funds or participation. So as you're considering your actions tonight or going forward, please know that. You have authority over TIF funds that are within your budget and within your accounts, and that's what you have.
Eric, I don't want to leave you out of this conversation. Did you have any comments?
As those for, you know, the original voting, I do remember going, I was on a phone call with someone for that committee. I don't recall how did we come up with that number? Was the number originally what Brad said, you know, Mr. Lambert said for $590, and then it got down to $280? I don't recall how we got to that number.
Do you have,
It was plugged into the developmental matrix that we put all the criteria in. That matrix was developed by Veritas Group, so it allowed us to enter all of the objective information, and then it spit out a number.
And
that, I do remember that, and I also I was included in a phone call when I was talking to a gentleman. We were just, you know, it was myself, I think, maybe Jill was on there, I don't remember who else was on there, but I remember talking to that gentleman who oversees how he got to that criteria.
yeah, so I think, is your question, Eric, how did we get to the 270 mark?
No, and now that, now that it's coming back to me, I think I do remember how it was.
I think the 270 number was one that we arrived at by looking at the requested tax abatement, if I recall, right? And that's where you had the idea.
What we looked at was, first of all, the utility work, the infrastructure stuff. That was the number one thing. And then, looking at a couple of those other factors that came out of the matrix, and I don't have the matrix in front of me right now, but that was where that number came from. It definitely wasn't one we just pulled out of the sky. It was...
Right, so there was some thought to it.
Yeah.
I know that you guys, I don't want to go back in history, but like I said, we did vote on to do something with it. Now, how we fell apart, how it didn't happen, I guess it's the both of us to blame, and I'll take blame on it as well, because I did vote for him for Mr. Lambert to get that amount of money. Now, how we go about getting to that point, I guess there'll be more conversation on that part, but, I think we should come to some type of agreement. We did vote on it, and we did approve it.
So here's the difficulty that I see. We've got a motion that was approved for May 20, 2019, in which we committed to expending dollars that aren't our own, which I guess looking back was a difficult thing to do. My suggestion, and I guess I'll make this a motion from the chair, is that we replace the motion of May 20, 2019, labeled 2B, with the following: that we commit the sum of $19,250 in April and October of each year out of TIF revenue funds commencing spring 2022 towards the development project known as the Summerwinds Plaza as reimbursement for infrastructure, facade, and other development, contingent upon Mr. Lambert remitting to the commission on or within 30 days invoices showing in excess of $400,000 paid towards those improvements.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that as a point of order, that that motion would have to be rescinded by the person who made it and then concurred by the person who made the second.
You got me there, Randy.
I'm
Is that
pretty,
Robert's rules?
I'm pretty sure that's how it would have to be done
Okay.
in order to make that happen. And I made the motion back then, basically with the contingency that that discussion with the utility board would take place, which can't now. So, that stuff is out the window. The motion was what it was. Things happened that, a professional attorney that Mr. Lambert had should have recognized what the next step was. It's not up to a board of layman citizens to, understand all the legal work that needs to go into contractual agreements, which this is one of them. So, no, I don't rescind that original motion.
So I guess, Dave, then, if we can't rescind it, is there options to amend it or alter it? I mean, alternatively, it's a motion that's been approved on the table, and one could say that there's no need to alter it because it's already been approved.
You could solicit a motion to rescind it. Got the maker involved, though, and that is a conflict.
I don't wanna stand in the way of you guys doing what you wanna do. But I'm gonna ask whatever happens here needs to go in front of our financial advisor for some review, before anything is signed, because part of what I'm gonna report to you tonight on the sustainability report, this could affect about 3 other projects, one of them being the lake dredging. So, that could be put in jeopardy through this action, as well as the Moore Street reconstruction too, so. Just be mindful that whatever is done here, if it's all TIF funds, it's gonna have an impact. It'll create a wave.
In that 270, you pointed out that, that it was going to be a lot of, infrastructure, and that cost was coming from the stormwater board there?
It's gonna be water, stormwater. and again,
Right, and so we really can't, we can't foot that bill of 270 with just, to make up for this, Nathan, with just our money alone. Here, that money was not coming just totally from us there.
So,
So in other words, I can't see us going the full shot here from our board here, RDC.
I guess the way that I look at it is the motion that was made back then was made in anticipation that we would be approaching them to request reimbursement, but even at that point, there was no guarantee that they would have said yes.
Right, but that was part of it.
Approaching who for reimbursement?
Utility board.
Utility.
It's in the record.
Yeah, it's in the record that you would approach them for a prorated contribution.
Right.
That
But-
wasn't reimbursement, it was for a contribution.
But again, a contribution would have been a part of, and this is procedural, is what it is, Nathan. This is not, I understand people's feelings on it, but this is just procedural
No,
to me.
I'm not worried about that, I'm talking about reimbursement, contribution, it's the same thing in that sense. We were asking them for money, and there was no guarantee that they would give it to us. That's my
I don't
point.
think it
But in
is.
fact, they
I don't
can't.
think
We've
it
already
is the same.
established that, right?
I'm
They
sorry?
really can't, utility board really can't go back and do this now. Am I right?
There's nothing to negotiate. There's no system development charges that can be recaptured.
Yeah.
There's no tap fees, there's none of that, it would have to be a cash transfer, and right now our utilities don't have the cash because it's already pledged, between, water and stormwater. We've probably got 6 million in projects ready to go, so it's not like we got a pile of cash sitting there.
I'm confused as to why we were allowed to make this motion back in 2019 to approve using funds from another municipal entity that we have no control over. And again,
A lot of things are made with contingencies when it comes to motions, when it comes to like intergovernmental stuff.
There's no contingency though in the motion.
But it's based upon
Contribution.
approaching the utility board, so that in a way is a contingency.
Well, no, it's an internal distribution. which means
Right.
they could have said, we'll give you 10%, and then we would have still been on the hook for the
But internal
remainder.
distributions meant also that we would have had to dive in with our staff and consultants, including engineers, to ferret out what those values were that could be invested into that project.
Well, in public meeting action approval of fund expenditure begged for that agreement that didn't occur. The agreement was going to contain, in a custom fashion, the contributory, participatory places where funds were gonna come. The utility board was gonna vote on something.
I need to get a water. You want some water, Brad? Standing up there.
So I guess, from a legal perspective, Mr. Austin, what are the options that we have right now? Is the only option for Mr. Niemeyer to recuse or rescind his original motion or to alter it?
No, you can probably supplement your motion. You can add to that action. There's no prohibition in Robert's rules to adding to something that exists.
To amend it?
Sorry?
To amend it?
Supplement it. I would think the maker, and I agree with him about the origin of a motion, going back to the maker, but what you would be doing is supplementing or adding to.
So I have a question on the page 29 that we've all been referencing for each item that's allocated and the total of the 590, 528. The portion that was to come from the utility where it says in our minutes is the 187. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, what it came out to.
Over here was 188, but in our minutes it says 187. Just making sure I'm not looking at. So, but at the bottom it says 590, 528, total request TIP participation. So, are we to say that the full 270 wasn't a portion of it supposed to come out of the TIP? I'm looking at it two different ways. So if we were to take what percentage of the 590, 528 is the 188 and redistribute it, is that something that's doable? Is it, because the only amount we're talking about is the 188 or 187, whichever number's accurate. Am I explaining myself well to understand that if there's a total of 590 and we said 270, it sounds to me like we were saying that 200,000 was supposed to be upon our approaching the utility and that we can't go back and do that. Am I getting it? Am I getting what you're saying? Randy?
I don't know.
Is that what you were saying earlier?
Numbers are not matching for me here.
Okay.
I see here the 82,000 and
What?
187,000.
I know, and they don't match on this page
I'm-
29.
I'm not an attorney. I do play one on TV once in a
No,
while.
but earlier you said
But-
that.
But what I'm gonna say here is that while I will not rescind the original motion, it doesn't stop anybody here from making a motion on an agenda item that's a public meeting agenda item. It just means that that motion would have to be something entirely different. You couldn't amend or rescind the motion that I made without
The maker.
me making that
Yeah.
or concurring with that. So it doesn't stop people in self-government from applying that right of self-government. It just means that it's gotta be something different.
So I'm going to alter my prior motion.
Hey, I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Nathan, how did you come up, I know you said this, 19,000 how did you come up with your number? What were you basing it on?
I took 270,000, I divided it by 7, and then I divided that by 2. So that's a $38,500 contribution each year.
Okay, I was just wondering how the math was. I don't know if you were taking out the stormwater part and then leaving the TIF part, I was just wanted to ask.
Yeah, so basically what I did is I take a look at the entire 590 as public improvements. You back out stormwater, water main, that's 188, that takes you down to roughly 400,000 with other public improvements that are made on site, and that's $402,488. And that's how I get to my numbers.
Okay,
Make sense?
yes it does.
So I'm going to modify, it's not a motion to replace, however I worded it before, but it's a new motion, made on the floor today. Margaret?
Are you making motions?
I did, yes.
Can you repeat your, or I know you said it earlier, but just go ahead and repeat it.
Motion is made to approve out of TIF funds, the sum of $19,250 each April and each October commencing spring 2022 for 7 straight years as reimbursement to, Summer Winds Plaza for public infrastructure improvements that they have made, contingent upon a showing of invoices showing paid and receipt in excess of $400,000 on or within 30 days of today's date.
Summer Winds Commercial.
Summer Winds Commercial, yes.
Yeah.
So, from what I understand with, tradition, Robert's Rules of Orders, that when there's only a simple quorum of a body there, that the chairman can make motions, although a chairman at any time could make a motion. Traditionally, that's not done. I know that from studying it a little bit, that like if, on a 5-member board, if you just had 3 and a motion needed to be made in a second in order for an item to be discussed, then that's where that would be applied. But, again, I guess it's up to this commission how you handle it. And I would just ask again that please consider this review by our financial advisor, because this will have an impact, and a pretty major one, in several very big projects that mean a lot to the community. Not that Brad's doesn't mean a lot to the community, but there's been 25 years plus of work that's gone into the lake dredging that's going to depend upon TIF funds to fund about 60% of it. And as well as the Moore Street corridor project that's a part of our capital planning already. So I think a review would be in order if that's the pleasure of the person making the motion in the second, if that second is made.
I would add that as well as my motion, it's subject to review as well. Who are they, Randy, our financial advisors?
O.W. Cronin Associates, Corby Thompson.
So if they were to find that, hold on, guys, this is screwing everything up if you do this. They can't come back and say, so don't do it.
No, they can't. It just would change formulas being applied to everything else we're doing. So,
yeah,
there's only so much money.
Nathan, what's the total amount that you're putting in motion? I know the payments. What's the total?
I think it's $269,500.
$269,500, and that'll be spread over 7 payments?
That's spread over 14 payments over 7 years.
And Mr. Austin, are we legally able to do that? I know you were talking about audit, and is that something that we are capable of doing?
You are.
And you don't foresee any problem being audited for the town or anything? I don't want to make headaches for other people either.
I do.
You do see that being a problem?
I do.
Can you give me an example?
Well, just the record of this proceeding from 2 years ago to the present indicates a significant lack of documentation of the trail. That's mostly what a State Board of Accounts audit is about. The paper trail or the trail, electronic or paper, that guides the process such that it can be evaluated that that process was legal, valid, or illegal and invalid. That's what an audit is about. And we do not have that documentation here.
And I guess regardless of the ramification of that sort of a thing, I do believe, the thing that concerns me is in this motion prior, we were aware that the RDC was to approach the utility board for the prorated contribution, in which we didn't do. So what I'm getting at is we're actually contributing, our investment is greater now, correct? And that's what you're asking us to do. And what you're saying that the ramification of that could potentially be is that we have an order in which we need to follow the, over time, the conversation about, the process as it was, the project as it was going along was to be communicated and a continuum. So pretty much, I guess, what you said at the last meeting, Randy, that he didn't come to the table, it appears that none of us did. Again, correct? No, nobody was at a table. There was no table.
But it wasn't our job to negotiate on his
But
behalf.
Mr. Weezer dropped the ball.
That is spot on.
Yeah.
That's
Correct.
the reason there is
There
no
was
contract here, no agreement, because there's
nobody
no
was at the
meeting of the
table.
minds.
Yeah, I can't, I just have to be clear, on what I'm voting for, because obviously, what I'm saying is, I agree with this number being promised, but I also want to be sure that, again, like Randy said, there's no precedent set, other than we voted on things with the facade grant, and we've amended that as we've learned. So I'm trying to understand why, if we proceed with Nathan's recommendation, why that could not be set for this particular, such as a time as this. You see what I'm getting, you know what I mean, right?
The facade grant is a policy objective developed on statute. This thing that we're doing here would have needed to have been legally vetted based on statute and have a legal agreement in place in order for it to be compared to that facade grant. Because the facade grant, whenever we act on it, is based on a policy that's based on statute. This has no statutory connections to it, other than our authority to appropriate funds.
Well, and you have the corporate authority to make contracts and make agreements. There's nothing different about this body than any other local unit of government body. What will also be picked up in a detailed audit, if such ever occurred, is that you violated your own policy. The template was what you created, and you established, and you implemented. If now we have this motion where the entirety of the amount is from TIP funds, that's not what your template says. It's not how it identifies what the source of funding is.
So, I'm going to respectfully disagree, Mr. Oshin. The motion that was made indicates that the monies were going to be coming from the Redevelopment Commission, but internally they were going to be apportioned. And I guess I'm more than a little disappointed that at the time that this motion was made, there wasn't more that was done to clarify what we needed to do on our end. And I guess I'm a little concerned about, and I respect advice given, but at the same time, there's not much difference in my mind as to us giving monies for this sort of improvement versus improvements that are made in our facade grant program meeting scrutiny. And that's where I see a strong parallel between what we'd be doing tonight, that'd be the pleasure of this commission, and what we do in the facade grant program. Just my opinion.
Since we're throwing opinions out there, it seems to be, it seems to me that pretty well everybody on this board, let's see, wants to try to come up with some kind of a solution to this, and we may be trying to do it by, how should you say, hanging on to this cluster here, and so it's stopping us everywhere we turn. So maybe us as a board, maybe we can look at a different way, as you mentioned, our facade grant, program, and then even that, we only have, 30,000 left in the thing there, okay, but,
About 3,000 after 3,000.
okay.
Let's
So
enlarge it.
even that, and maybe this is something that, comes out in our next year plan there or whatever, but, it seems like we want to make this right, but we're not gonna be able to make all this right, and really, we shouldn't, because that money was supposed to be coming out of the utilities infrastructure, and so maybe we need to look at it at a, get together and then kind of look at it at a different way to do this program, because we're all probably pretty happy with, trade winds, and summer winds and how that has worked out at the plaza.
I'm just not happy with the rise and roll, because I think I've put on about 10 pounds since that place opened up, so.
Second
I hear you
Not
there.
real happy with it.
That's not Mr.
Shame on
Lambert's
you,
fault,
Brad.
though.
And I do wanna
Bad
say,
tenant.
with all due respect, I do find it, that life happens, but Mr. Weezer really let you down. Because he definitely, I concur 1,000,000% that as much as, he definitely should have been, and you're not new to this either. So, this is what's kind of perplexing me as well.
This
But
was
it's
your
irrelevant.
first,
I
like,
just
commercial
wanna make
development,
a
right, Brad?
decision based
Yeah.
on the
Yeah, so
law.
this was a new thing to
And-
you, and that's where you lean on advice of professionals. Yeah, in my personal business, I have
Yep.
attorneys that I depend on, for advice too, and
I don't-
they're
I don't have
really
any.
thorough. My corporate counsel and my trucking counsel are, man, they go through everything with a fine tooth comb, and, I agree with Jolie, but there hasn't been a second yet made, so.
Yeah, and Jim isn't, obviously, I didn't invite him.
Yeah, I don't wanna beat up on him, he needs to be able to
No,
defend
right.
himself.
He needs to defend
If he was
himself.
here,
Yeah,
I'd beat
mean,
up
but
on him in person.
And I don't remember exactly when, the details of when.
You would expect that from me.
I mean, Jim's wife was back in the hospital with cancer, and I think I may have, not continued using him up to the very end. I don't remember exactly. He would be my only defense of him at this time.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing to defend there. This is a procedural question.
Yeah.
And anything and I'll keep repeating, anything commission does, we gotta back it up with a good, hard financial review, and the legal has to be tuned in so that it passes the muster of accountability.
Well, I'm going to second Nathan's, motion, based on that being done. Exactly what we added was to have it reviewed, further with that contingency.
All right, there's been made a motion and a second, further discussion.
You beat this horse. It's dead.
Block it. All right, hearing none, we'll call for a roll call. Margaret?
Jolie Kovach?
Yes.
Doug Spencer?
No.
Randy Niemeyer?
No,
Eric Burnham?
Yes.
Nathan Viss?
Yes. All right. Thank you to all. I appreciate the good dialogue that happened this evening. This is indeed difficult, and as I've mentioned, I've lost a significant amount of sleep over what we could have done differently and improved, and by no means is this a solid yes, because if we get an answer back from our financial folks that they would recommend otherwise, Mr. Lambert will have to come back to the drawing board. I'm going to request, Dave, if you can craft an agreement that reflects this, what was agreed upon this evening. Mr. Lambert, if you can get to Margaret and to Mr. Everly verification of in excess of $400,000 that has been spent on behalf of Summer Winds towards non-water, let me make sure I get the language correct.
non-utility.
Non-utility. If you can get that within the next 14 days over to Mr. Everly and to Margaret, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. If I could just clarify, Nathan, you said, so it's, you want the invoices that has to do with, asphalt or curb, earthwork, et cetera?
Yeah, so you've got on page 29 of our packet here this evening, general conditions, general contractor, supervision, travel, engineering,
Yep.
earthwork, asphalt paving and curbs, landscaping, site lighting, and electrical. So non-storm sewer, non-water main.
Understood, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to again say thank you very much to, all the members of the commission, and I apologize for, not having this wrapped up 2 years ago, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Brad.
All right, next we've got on the agenda, ratify LPA consulting contract, 133rd and King. Mr. Everly,
Yes.
What-
Mr. President, this is a document that I wanted to thank, I think it was Randy, Eric, and Doug that came in to the council, to our office here to sign this. We thought we would be able to just take care of this at tonight's meeting, but it turned out that NDOT needed this contract a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I think the day after you signed it, NDOT needed to have this in their hands. So the idea was you signed this contract and it would be ratified at tonight's meeting, so we didn't jeopardize anything having to do with the 133rd and King project. So you'd already selected Burke through your scoring process, so that was already done. So we knew who that was going to be, we knew what the amount was going to be, but we had to get it signed and in their hands very quickly, which we were able to do. And I'm just looking for you to ratify that contract at tonight's meeting.
based on that representation, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll give it to Eric.
Eric, second by Randy.
Yep, second.
Discussion, hearing none, roll call.
Jolie Klavach,
Yes.
Doug Spencer,
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer,
Yes.
Eric Burnham,
Yes.
Nathan Viss.
Yes. All right, project updates. We got the clerk treasurer funds report that is received for information. Does anyone have any questions on what is in our packet?
Back in the front here.
I think that was, what page was that, Doug?
What color was that?
Yeah, right.
Learned it. Maybe it's further back.
It's right before your facade grant. So if you go to the facade grant and go backwards 2
Yep.
pages, you'll be right there.
Okay. All right, so you can see how we're doing.
There it is, right there, yeah.
Yep. We anticipate a draw coming in, or we've received a draw. But the fund balance as of today's date, $1.137, $138,076. And then we've also got the investment from the SVT fund of $233,000. So. All right, hearing none. Dave, update on Hood Lust damages update?
I'm still waiting on IDEM attorneys in Indianapolis.
Any way to poke the bear?
I poke every morning.
Poking a bureaucracy? Good luck.
Understood. Industrial
Good
park
Lord.
property roadway, any update there?
None that we can talk about.
Okay. If we can have for next meeting, Margaret, an executive session to discuss, property acquisition purchases, fall underneath that category?
5:30 PM,
Yes, please. Yep.
sir?
Facade grant updates, Margaret, you and Rick have again provided an update as to where things stand. Rick, anything to note in that report?
I will give credit where it's due, and that is Margaret's work. She does an outstanding job on that, but as we discussed this evening, with what you awarded tonight, there's gonna be roughly, as Randy, actually, there's $2,178 left in the pot for the rest of the year if you don't increase the,
Our meetings will be much smoother when it's zero.
Unless we add more to the kitty. Right. Okay.
I vote no.
Margaret? Yeah, right.
but I do appreciate Margaret's efforts. She does a fine job of having taken this over from Sarah.
There's a couple of updates there
Please
that,
go ahead.
Sean Perfetti's sign was supposed to have been finished on Friday. We're waiting for them. That's the Lawrence Group, where, just south of the, Oaks Bakelet sign there. And, we're waiting on him to call for his final inspection. Once that's done, then he'll be able to submit his disbursement request. We have received Brian Kubel's disbursement request. He has had final inspection on all the building permit items. The exterior painting was going on Friday, and so Tim Kubiak is going to check to make sure and ensure that all the painting is done, because that is not a building permit, inspected item. So once that is confirmed, that disbursement request will be submitted to, Jennifer Sandberg for disbursement. And, Eric Lindemulder has his permit, and I believe work has already started at his project.
Thank you for that. One of the cool things has been on 2 different projects in 41, when they've been renovating, it's exposed the old paint on the side. And my wife is asking, is there any way that we can save that? Unfortunately, there isn't, but there's some really cool signs that have been exposed on some of the buildings.
Yeah, some of that paint you might not want to expose to.
Which is.
No.
Which is true. So, all right, Margaret, thank you for that update. Any questions from the commission?
I do have a question in regards to that grant, being that the funds are low. Are we gonna just keep taking on, or, keep taking in applications and then let them know that, funds have already been completed? I mean, technically we have $2,000. I mean, that's not gonna go very far, and we're only not even halfway through the year. Are we gonna just keep taking the applications, or are we gonna let them know?
So, I think that's a good question, Eric, and I guess, on my way in, actually, I received a phone call from someone else wondering if there was any funds available for the year. That's up to this commission as to whether or not we want to replenish policy decision, or say that's enough for the year, and if folks want to submit, we can let them know that they'll be first in line. Should someone not fulfill the terms of their obligation, or they'll be first in line next year, would be my assessment.
Would it not be better to wait until the budget's established for next year to make that determination? Because you may get something back from a financial review that if this money awarded to Mr. Lambert affects other projects, there may need to be a reconsideration of how things are budgeted as a way to balance that whole scale. So I don't know if that'd be a great idea to create a big backlog thinking there's gonna be 100,000. Maybe, if somebody comes in with a small enough project, we could consider it, and then when it's zero, but then when we go through the budget process, we'll have an opportunity to review everything that was spent this year and look at next year as a way to, maybe we have to balance the whole scale. It just depends on how this all comes out.
And not only that, Mr. President, you took the opposite approach this year. You told folks that were wanting to, apply towards the end of last year, and we were out of money. My recollection is you advised them to wait till the first of this year, rather than have overlapping, application years, if you will. So I believe we waited until after January 1st to start taking applications for this, calendar year.
Yeah, I think we said we put them in line with the order that we got them now. I think we said we'd receive them as being first as of the first of the year. I could be wrong, but there was a lot going on.
I just hate to see us to have a backlog of 30 people, and then if the budget has to change a little bit, then have that kind of hanging over our head. So that's just my opinion. I think it'd be better to just be prudent and patient, and there's no hurry.
Say no.
I agree. I think that, even after Jan 1, there could be other, new members on this board, and we're it's so early in the year, it's not really necessary. But if there are any of these projects that end up not occurring, but I think all of them are pretty solid. Doesn't it appear they're all pretty solid?
Margaret?
Yes,
Yeah.
but if you notice on what's marked as page 60, it's not truly page 60, there's a new box there that shows the additional 10,120 of unencumbered funds due to last month's denial of the extension. That went back into last year's coffers. I don't know if that's something that will help you or not.
That money did carry over on the budget, if I recall. Anything that hadn't been encumbered yet, but we'll have to do a check on that with Jen to make sure that those funds are expendable before we could necessarily consider all of that.
Can you pass that request along, Margaret?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So potentially we could take on one more small project this year.
Yep.
And then anyone who wants to apply, it literally has to be after 1/1/22?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, yeah. If,
I would definitely agree with that. And in going further, I'm gonna say right now, I don't wanna add any more money to that fund. Once we go through it, my vote is not to add any more money to that fund.
Thank you, Eric.
I didn't know if that was a conversation, but I just wanted to put my opinion out there, that I will not vote to add to that fund this year.
No, and I think, why don't we establish that as a policy, so if we can add that to our agenda for next month for discussion, and then make
Okay.
that formal. Margaret, if we can do that.
And you could also, when we
think
receive our new, what
Anything that would be
monies
added to
are
the fund
coming
would also
in.
have to require an additional appropriation too,
Right.
which is not the greatest fiscal policy from an audit standpoint either. It puts our bond rating in jeopardy when, financial agencies see that you're not managing the funds how you said you would. It shows these fiscal inconsistencies.
I think the grant that we're doing is fantastic, but I think it needs to have a limit to it and be responsible for the taxpayers.
All right, moving along to project updates, light pole banners. Mr. Eberly, will you be offended if we move that to next meeting for discussion?
no, not at all.
All right. I've got a
Pretty
client-
easy to convince, Rick.
I've got a client
Yeah.
meeting that 30 minutes late for
I haven't
already.
had supper yet.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Me either.
Me either.
Mr.
Yeah,
Niemeyer,
lunch, right?
you had mentioned, I want to add one thing here, financial analysis. Is there a written report?
There is.
Would it be prudent to first send that out to us for review, and then have you discuss that at the next meeting? Would that make sense?
That's fine. There's a lot of big projects that have been a part of capital planning here for years that, again, are gonna require multiple sources of revenue, this being one. So, I'll forward that report. I've got it on my phone here to all of you, and I believe it's supposed to be posted on our website at some point. Has that been done yet, Rick?
The one that you
The
expressed at the last,
Sustainability report?
council meeting?
Yeah.
I'll have to check, Randy, see if
Okay.
that's on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
So that-
forward that to all of you.
That report will go out on email then, Randy?
I am going to email it right now, Eric.
Thanks.
And then we will have
Hurry up, will you?
we'll have a verbal report
Hey.
then from Randy at the next meeting.
Not bad. I don't wanna upset you guys.
Any other written communications anyone on the board wants to share?
I guess I should ask Rick, the banners, we were going to do for,
Veterans,
looking at it to be hung up near Veterans Day?
right, your first, that was the whole intent of this banner program, was to honor our veterans, so, yes.
Okay.
But Jolie had asked whether we could perhaps do other events during the year, and would it be difficult to, change the banners out, so to speak, and, it's just, I mean, we're looking at 120 of them, so the most time-consuming would be the initial installation. After that, changing the banners out shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. Just a question of whether you want to add another banner, series of banners for some other event, or some, let's say the chamber maybe does it,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know, because we were concerned that it would be time-consuming on the staff, so it would be doable maybe twice a
Multiple times a
year,
year, quarterly,
multiple-
something
quarterly?
like that, yeah, so.
That would be really cool.
Semi-annually, but depends on who wants to tackle the next banner.
So we all need to, look at what our pricing for next time, that's what we'll think about.
Okay.
So does everybody have access to their Cedar Lake email? That's what I just sent it to.
I do not.
Okay, you need to get access to that, because part of the policy change by the council was to make sure that all of this information flows through the public server, because these
Uh-huh.
things are all subject to public records requests and open meeting laws, so.
Right.
It's important to get access.
I had difficulty, so I intend to contact, Mr. Cliff.
Yes, please
That's-
do so.
I did, I tried and the link didn't work for me,
Yeah,
so.
just make sure you get that done.
need to be on a computer.
No, you do it on your phone.
I can, it didn't work on my phone. Okay.
Julie, I have to do that too.
Any update from school
You
court?
need to, also, you were having difficulty?
I have not gone through that, no.
Okay, thanks. I will.
At the high school and the new upper elementary. And we did name the new upper elementary. It will be the Red Cedar Elementary.
Okay.
Slackers.
Very cool.
Like the history of the
Right,
area.
A lot of dirt being moved around.
Very cool.
Yeah, a lot of dirt.
In the high school, those are going to be
Those
new
will be
fields?
practice fields,
Yeah.
baseball, soccer, softball, football practice fields. And behind that will be, extra parking that will be like opened up for like football games. It won't be like a parking lot that's used all the time. As of right now, it would just be like special events, graduation, football games, when we need extra parking.
And that's gonna be towards the back,
Yeah, it'll be towards the back.
so the fields are in front of it.
The fields are in front. And there will be like a netting that goes up while the baseball's practicing, so that way balls won't go on to 133rd. There'll be a netting that will go up and down.
Isn't on there yet either.
Very good. Any updates from
We have the same issue.
you, Mr. Carnahan?
We had a chamber luncheon today, which the town manager was the speaker, and I couldn't attend it because I had a funeral to go to.
Oh, I was gonna say, how many times did he screw up?
Well,
But he
So,
has
do you
lunch,
wanna-
so he's still
Do you
full.
wanna say what took place there?
I just gave him an update on things like Lake Eco Restoration Program, the street projects we've got planned for this year, the utility program, utility work, the West Side Sanitary Sewer Interceptor, the East Side Water Project, things like that, and then talked about a couple of the, commercial developments, taking a look at Cedar Lake. We've got People's Bank, we just met with, that wants to develop on the corner of King and 133rd. Taco Bell had reached out to us about a month ago, and I haven't heard back from them yet. But then we've got Dunkin' Donuts and Domino's that wants to go in where Rivoli's, am I saying that right?
Rivoli's.
Rivoli's was, yeah, so.
Oh, wow.
And
Is there any plans for Chase Bank?
Chase is closing July 22nd.
I knew that,
Yeah.
okay,
But nothing, we have no plans for that property, Eric, no.
okay.
And I hear
Cedar Lake
Centier
is
is
bad
offering
investment.
$125 for any Chase customers to come there. And I hear Demont State is getting a lot of people. And I had 2 business owners in town that have huge money in Chase, and they were told to go to Crown Point or St. John. They said they're going to a different bank here in Cedar Lake.
Good deal. All right, anything else from the commission? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.